Okay, so we left off at effect size, which is here, this highlighted portion where it says D equals 0.97. Now, a little earlier on page 215, they said that paired samples t-tests for differences in means were adequately powered to detect medium effect size, D equals 0.05 by Cohen's standards. That's Cohen's D. So this D is Cohen's, it's actually Cohen's D. Whoop, sorry. Cohen's D, which is a guy who came up with it. And this tells us the effect size. Now, why do we care about effect size? Well, for a few reasons, okay? So we need power and we need effect size. Power is the probability that a test will lead to a rejection of the null hypothesis. Or I'm sorry, the null hypothesis, okay? While effect size is the measure of degree to which the null hypothesis is false. So power, again, is the probability that the test will lead to rejection of the null hypothesis. And effect size tells us the measure of the degree to which the null hypothesis is false. Again, we're doing all of this to make sure that our inferential statistics are valid, okay? And to determine should we reject or accept the null hypothesis, okay? Now, let's again talk about this 0.97. Well, what the heck is a 0.97? And then they have it down here again when we go into further about the other options. In this case, it's effect size is 0.46 for transfers and toileting. And then for bathing and dressing, we have an effect size of 0.40. Now, if you're curious as to where this is coming from, okay, let's look at table 1 for a second on page 215. You have communication and nutrition, transfers and toileting, and then dressing and bathing. So this is where they're coming up with their assumptions or for their modules here, okay? Now, back to this 0.97. Let's do this. Okay, so the effect size, again, based off this D, is interpreted in different ways. So sometimes you'll see D equals 0.2, D equals 0.5, or D equals 0.8, okay? This is a small effect size. This is medium. This is large. So 0.2 is small, 0.5 is medium, and 0.8 is large. Now let's go back to the article. And they told us that they were able to adequately, the t-test for differences in means were adequately powered to detect medium effect size. Okay, well, what does that medium effect size mean? Right? And if it was based off or powered by medium effect size, why do they give us individual effect sizes of D equals 97? And then for toileting and transferring, D equals 46. And then for bathing and dressing, they gave us D equals 40. Well, those are the individual effect size computed for what they were looking at, right? So this tells us that, let's look at the first one again. The effect size was a large effect, right? For toileting and transferring, the effect size was, well, it's a little bit below medium, but you could say that's medium. And then this again was a little bit below medium, 0.40 for bathing and transferring. And I apologize because I realized I just said D equals 97, D equals 46, and D equals 40. Let me make sure that I'm always being clear about that. That's not D equals 97, right? It's D equals 0.97 because there's a difference between 97 and 0.97, okay? But we know that this is large, this is technically medium, and this is technically medium. Meanwhile, we have significant p-values. So how is the effect size medium? But the p-values are considered significant, right? Well, when a difference is statistically significant, it doesn't necessarily mean that is big or important or that it actually has meaningfulness. The effect size lets us know how meaningful it actually is, which is very important. And when you're running a t-test or you're running a analysis of variance, we want to know what the power is from the beginning, and we also want to know what the effect size is. So those effect size are important, right? We have to know what those are, and they had told us that for the most part that this study was adequately powered to detect medium effect sizes. There's medium meaningfulness at what we're looking at here, okay? Now I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there on effect size. I'm going to move forward, though, with the rest of the information. So, moving forward, it also says that we also investigated whether caregiver's gender, age, number of years as caregiver, depression, or diagnosis. Let me highlight this so you know where I'm reading. Okay. We also investigated whether caregiver's gender, age, number of years as caregiver, depression, or diagnosis of AD were related to the changes in knowledge for each of our modules. So independent t-tests were revealed, independent samples t-tests revealed that men and women did not significantly differ in knowledge gained throughout all modules. Similar analysis also showed that knowledge gain did not differ between caregivers of people who were diagnosed as having or not having AD in all modules. Correlational analysis were used to assess whether depression and age were related to change in knowledge for the 3 modules. Neither depression nor age was significantly correlated with percentage change scores in any of the modules. Thus, the diagnosis of AD caregiver, depression, age, and gender did not influence the efficacy of our intervention. Well, that's important to know. First and foremost, let's go back again. So we've talked about paired samples t-test. Now we're talking about independent samples t-test. Oh my gosh, what is an independent sample t-test? Well, we know what a t-test is, right? Because we're going to go back to our handy dandy chart. Excuse me. T-test looks at differences between 2 groups on some variable of interest. And I'm trying to remind myself if I had put any additional information about paired or unpaired. Nope, I didn't. Okay. So, going back to the chart, article, independent t-test. Okay. So, again, the t-test is the statistical procedure to compare two means. I'll keep saying that over and over so we get that. T-test is to compare, used to compare 2 means. The independent, or also known as unpaired t-test, is used when the means of 2 independent groups of subjects are compared. So the means of 2 independent groups of subjects are compared. So generally, those groups are usually created through random assignment, and the samples of convenience or intact groups can be used. Okay. Groups are also considered independent because each is composed of independent set of subjects that have no actual relationship that can be derived from repeated measures or matching. Okay, I'm going to say that again. And I have to remember exactly what I said. The independent t-test, okay, can be are essentially composed of subjects with no relationship derived from repeated measures or matching, because let's remind ourselves, if it had repeated measures or matching, that would be considered a paired t-test. Okay, so they used independent sample t-test to compare or investigate whether caregivers' age, gender, or number of years as caregiver, depression, or diagnosis of AD were related to the changes in knowledge for each of the modules. Their independent t-test revealed that men and women did not significantly differ, okay, because we're comparing two groups, two independent groups, men and women, okay, did not differ in knowledge. Then they said similar analysis also showed that Similar analysis also showed that knowledge gain did not differ between caregiver of people who were diagnosed as having or not having AD in all modules. Correlational analysis were used to assess whether depression and age were related in changes in knowledge for the three modules. Now, correlational analysis. Correlation essentially means relationship. So, if you have correlation, I want to make sure that that's exactly what we're talking about. Okay. If you have correlation, we're looking at the relationship of something, which would make sense because they asked, or they wanted to look at, was there a relationship between depression and age? Okay. Correlational analysis, so looking at the relationship or relationship analysis, was used to assess whether depression and age were related to changes in knowledge for the three modules. And they determined that it wasn't. All right, so that sums up that area. Now let's look at retention of knowledge. Retention of knowledge. Only 10 caregivers completed the follow-up survey on use of medical services. Okay, and then here they go on to give you, at baseline, the mean number of general doctor's office visits by care recipients were 4.50 with a standard deviation of 6.22, and that decreased after intervention. However, the mean number of care recipient doctor visits that were for ADL-related reasons increased from a mean of 0.40, standard deviation of 0.84 at baseline, to 1.05 at follow-up. Okay? So then they kind of go on to explain that. I think that for now is self-explanatory. And when we have our discussion, again, we're going to go into explain what does all of this mean. But for the time being, I'm pointing out what you're seeing. Now let's take a break of this and let's look at Table 2. So Table 2 gives you an overview of the results. What do we have? You have your three modules: communication and nutrition, transfer and toileting, bathing and dressing, pre-test, post-test. They gave you N, which is the number, samples, as you see, 53, 53, 46, 46, 45, 45. Interesting. They gave you the means. They gave you the standard deviation. Then they gave you this. Well, what is this again? So this is the T statistic, right? The T statistic came out to be 7.05 using the degrees of freedom for 52. Where did we get that 52 from? N minus 1. The N was 53 minus 1 gives you 52. Using that critical chart again, knowing that it was based off 95% level of confidence, or alpha of 0.05 and two-tail, they're able to determine what that exact number was. Okay? That's this, 7.05. So I'm going to go back up here. T52 equals 7.05. Sorry, I had to pause it for a second to avoid a technical difficulty. But to keep going from where I left off, I apologize. Oh, the same thing is done for each, okay? So you'll notice that this 45 is from this 46, and this 44 is from this 45. And you can go back up to page 216 and make sure that it matches, okay? So this is where we're going to stop and discuss together.